A final day of UN public hearings on Israeli rights abuses are being held at the United Nations in Geneva. The Commission is examining the allegations of both Israeli and Palestinian authorities. Part of the inquiry is focusing on the killing of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who was shot by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank last year. Al Jazeera Arabic's Jerusalem bureau chief, Walid Omary, has testified.
On May 11, 2022, Abu Akleh was killed by Israeli army fire while reporting on the ground about an Israeli military raid on a refugee camp in the city of Jenin in the occupied West Bank. Many eyewitnesses accounts and independent investigations have concluded that the gunfire aimed at Abu Akleh and other reporters came from Israeli soldiers, and that the journalists were deliberately targeted despite wearing distinctive press signs on their vests and helmets. Abu Akleh was shot in the back of her head and rushed to a hospital where she was declared dead. Days later, at her funeral procession, Israeli police attacks the mourners who attended, beating them with batons. The deliberate targeting of journalists during armed conflict constitutes a war crime. Moreover, under international law, Israel as an occupying power is obliged to protect occupied people, including journalists.
Well, let's bring in Miloon Kothari. He's the commissioner of this United Nations inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and in Israel. That's its official name. He joins us now from Geneva. Sir, as regards the killing of our colleague Shireen Abu Akleh, what did you take away from today's hearing?
Well, this is part of the second set of hearings we are having the Commission looking at the closure of civil society space in the occupied territories and in Israel. And we've been hearing from human rights defenders, activists, women human rights defenders, journalists, and part of our work was to look at the killing of journalists. And we have obviously focused in on Shireen Abu Akleh's killing. Today's hearing, we had evidence from Al Jazeera journalists themselves, and we've also spoken to Shireen Abu Akleh's family. We are gathering evidence, what we can, and at an appropriate time, we will disclose the evidence to the Human Rights Council, the UN General Assembly, the International Criminal Court. So it's part of an ongoing procedure.
Okay, what else today what else did you take away from today and that you'd like to share with us? Because as you mentioned, it's not just, this commission is not just about Shireen's killing, it's also about the shrinking space for civil society in Palestinian territories, in Palestine, and human rights abuses generally.
Yes, what we've been hearing is very disturbing. It appears that and some of the hearings we had were closed hearings because of the sensitivities of those who testified and threats to them and their life. What we've been hearing is very disturbing, that in the past, there's been an escalation of the closure of civil society space, both by the Israeli authorities, by the Palestinian Authority, by the de facto authority in Gaza. And there are more and more cases of arrests, of detentions, of torture, of particularly targeting, let's say, LGBTI activists, targeting cultural activists, and inhuman and degrading treatment. And so we are in the process of compiling all this information, which will be presented to the UN Human Rights Council in June this year. But what we heard is very, very disturbing.
How do you expect this work will be used and acted upon?
Well, part of our work is, of course, investigative, and we are, as we collect the information, we are making it available to also to judicial bodies. You will know that our report to the General Assembly last year in October had made a recommendation that that the General Assembly refer the matter to the International Court of Justice, which it has, and they are taking up the case. We are waiting for the verdict on what is the legality of occupation? Our report concluded that occupation has become permanent. We are also asking, the GA has also asked the International Court of Justice to lay out what are the responsibilities of third states in this case. What are the responsibilities in terms of armed support, in terms of trade? So that's our ongoing work. Whatever we come up with, we are going to make it available to all judicial bodies, including countries where there is universal jurisdiction. So it's an ongoing mandate, which allows us to also look comprehensively at the issue, both historically and geographically, because we are the first commission of inquiry that's been tasked to also look inside Israel, and we are doing that.
Miloon Kothari, thank you for joining us on the program today.